You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your educational journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. DevSecOps represents the evolution of software delivery where security is not a separate phase but an integrated, automated discipline woven into every stage of the pipeline. The purpose of DevSecOps is to bring security controls directly into continuous integration and continuous delivery workflows so that they become routine, predictable, and verifiable. By embedding checks, validations, and policy enforcement in the same automation that builds and ships code, organizations ensure that vulnerabilities are caught early, compliance is demonstrable, and deployments remain resilient. This approach shifts the perception of security from being a bottleneck to being a natural, codified element of delivery. Instead of relying on late-stage audits or ad hoc reviews, DevSecOps turns security into repeatable processes that scale with development speed. Ultimately, it ensures that modern pipelines deliver not only software at velocity, but also software that can be trusted. At the core of DevSecOps is the practice of embedding security tests, checks, and approvals directly into delivery pipelines as first-class stages. Rather than treating security scans as optional add-ons, they are integrated alongside build and test steps. For example, a pipeline might automatically run a static analysis scan after compiling code and block promotion if critical vulnerabilities are found. Embedding security this way ensures consistency and prevents drift between projects. It transforms security from a reactive discipline into a proactive one, where issues are addressed as part of normal development rather than escalated as exceptions. Continuous integration and continuous delivery pipelines themselves orchestrate every step of software delivery. They take version code, run automated builds, apply tests, package artifacts, and deploy them to environments in a repeatable sequence. Declarative workflows define how these steps occur, ensuring that infrastructure, dependencies, and approvals follow codified patterns. This orchestration eliminates manual variability and provides an auditable trail of what was built, tested, and deployed. In the DevSecOps context, pipelines become the enforcement mechanism for policy because every action runs through the same controlled automation. A central principle of DevSecOps is shift-left security, where vulnerability detection moves earlier in the lifecycle. Static application security testing, software composition analysis, and secret scanning are run before merges so that insecure code never enters the main branch. For instance, a developer who accidentally commits a cloud API key has it flagged at the pull request stage, long before it reaches deployment. By surfacing issues early, remediation is faster, cheaper, and less disruptive. Shift-left security turns pipelines into safety nets, catching mistakes before they spread downstream. Infrastructure as code has expanded the scope of what pipelines manage, making it critical to validate infrastructure definitions before provisioning. Templates and manifests must be checked for security baselines covering networks, identities, and encryption. For example, IAC validation can block a configuration that creates an unencrypted storage bucket or an overly permissive firewall rule. These pre-provisioning checks ensure that cloud environments adhere to security standards by default, preventing misconfigurations from being embedded into production. Security is thus enforced not just at the code level but at the infrastructure level as well. Policy as code provides the consistent engine for enforcing rules across tools and stages. With engines such as Open Policy Agent, organizations can define rules once like requiring TLS on all services or forbidding privileged containers and apply them across pipelines, clusters, and cloud accounts. Policy as code eliminates human subjectivity, ensuring that the same rules apply regardless of who runs the pipeline. It turns governance into automation, embedding compliance as part of normal delivery rather than as a separate audit activity. This consistency is one of the most powerful aspects of DevSecOps. Artifacts such as packages, binaries, and container images must also carry verifiable identity. Artifact signing and provenance mechanisms attach cryptographic signatures and build metadata to every output. This provides proof of who built the artifact, what inputs were used, and whether it has been tampered with. For example, a container image signed by a trusted build system can be verified before deployment, ensuring authenticity. Provenance reduces supply chain risk by embedding accountability into the artifacts themselves, making it clear whether they can be trusted. Complementing provenance, software bills of materials provide inventories of the components and licenses contained in each artifact. Generating SBOMs automatically during builds ensures that organizations know what they are shipping, down to the library version and license obligations. When new vulnerabilities are disclosed, SBOMs make it possible to instantly identify affected deployments. They also support compliance by demonstrating that open-source license terms are respected. SBOMs transform software delivery from opaque processes into transparent supply chains, strengthening both security and governance. Even the accounts that run pipelines must follow the principle of least privilege. Runner credentials should be scoped to the minimal actions needed, rather than granting broad administrative rights. For example, a runner that compiles code does not need access to production secrets. Scoping reduces the impact of compromise and prevents pipelines from being abused as attack vectors. By limiting what runners can do, organizations align delivery automation with the same security principles applied elsewhere. Reducing persistence in build environments is another critical practice. Ephemeral runners and short-lived tokens ensure that access is temporary and context-specific. Rather than reusing long-lived credentials, pipelines generate fresh tokens for each job, which expire immediately after use. This approach limits the window in which stolen credentials could be abused. Ephemeral infrastructure embodies the DevSecOps philosophy of making environments disposable and temporary, minimizing opportunities for attackers to gain durable footholds. Secrets management integrates with pipelines to provide credentials safely at runtime. Rather than storing passwords or API keys directly in scripts, pipelines fetch them securely from a vault. Vault integrations enforce masking so that secrets do not appear in logs, rotation so that they remain fresh, and audit trails so that usage is tracked. For instance, a deployment job may retrieve database credentials at the moment of execution, use them briefly, and then discard them. Secrets management ensures that sensitive data is governed consistently, even in highly automated workflows. Pipeline speed is still a priority, and DevSecOps balances security with efficiency. Parallel jobs allow different scans to run simultaneously, while incremental jobs focus only on changed code. For example, a pipeline might scan only the files affected by a pull request while still enforcing full scans at scheduled intervals. This optimization provides timely feedback to developers without removing critical gates. It reinforces the principle that security does not have to slow delivery if designed thoughtfully. Before code even reaches the main repository, pre-commit and pre-receive hooks provide an early line of defense. These hooks can block commits containing obvious policy violations, such as secrets, forbidden file types, or insecure dependencies. By catching mistakes before they are integrated centrally, they reduce downstream noise and prevent repositories from becoming polluted. Hooks embody the DevSecOps philosophy of pushing checks as far left as possible, ensuring that quality and security are enforced at every entry point. Environmental parity addresses the subtle but dangerous problem of policy drift. Development, test, and production environments must remain aligned so that security and compliance controls function consistently. For example, enforcing encryption in production but not in development can create false confidence, as vulnerabilities may go unnoticed until too late. By maintaining parity across environments, organizations ensure that what is tested reflects what is deployed. This principle reduces surprises, stabilizes pipelines, and ensures that controls remain valid end-to-end. Change control remains essential even in highly automated pipelines. Linking pull requests to tickets, risk ratings, and approvals ensures that decisions are traceable and accountable. For instance, A change introducing a new service might require explicit sign-off due to its high-risk profile. These controls provide context for why changes were made, who approved them, and what risks were considered. Change control in DevSecOps does not mean slowing pipelines with bureaucracy. It means ensuring that approvals are visible, consistent, and auditable. Finally, metrics and dashboards provide governance insight by turning pipeline results into measurable trends. Key indicators such as pass rates, defect escape ratios, and mean time to fix help organizations understand whether their DevSecOps practices are improving outcomes. For example, a rising trend in escaped vulnerabilities might indicate the need for stronger gates or better training. Dashboards provide visibility not just for engineers, but for leadership, aligning security performance with organizational objectives. Without metrics, pipelines remain opaque. With them, they become instruments of continuous improvement. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Release gates are the formal checkpoints that determine whether software is ready to progress from one stage to the next. In DevSecOps, these gates enforce minimum standards for security and quality before promotion to higher environments. For example, a release gate might require that all SAST, SCA, and infrastructure as code checks pass with no critical findings, and that test coverage exceeds a defined threshold. If the criteria are not met, the pipeline halts automatically. This transforms gates into trust contracts, ensuring that only code meeting established standards advances. By codifying expectations, release gates replace subjective judgment calls with consistent, auditable decisions. Container and registry policies extend this assurance to the artifacts being deployed. These policies require that images are signed, originate from approved base layers, and contain no vulnerabilities above defined thresholds. For example, a registry might block any image with high-severity CVEs from being tagged as production ready. These controls turn registries into secure checkpoints rather than passive stores, ensuring that only validated artifacts reach runtime. Container and registry policies strengthen supply chain trust, making it clear that images are not only functional but also compliant with organizational security rules. Dynamic and interactive testing also play a role within DevSecOps pipelines. Dynamic application security testing and interactive application security testing validate how applications behave under execution in staging environments. DAST probes the application externally, while IAST observes its internal execution with instrumentation. Together, they catch flaws that static checks may miss, such as improper session handling or runtime injection vulnerabilities. By integrating these scans before production promotion, organizations ensure that controls are effective not just on paper, but in practice. Runtime validation in pipelines bridges the gap between design and reality. Admission controls at the platform layer provide the final guardrail before deployment. These controls can deny workloads that lack signatures, SBOMs, or approved configurations, stopping insecure artifacts at the cluster boundary. For instance, Kubernetes admission controllers can block pods running as root or pulling from untrusted registries. Admission controls enforce organizational policy directly at runtime platforms, ensuring that even if upstream checks are missed, insecure deployments cannot slip through. This defense-in-depth approach closes gaps left by earlier stages. Segregation of duties also plays a critical role in preventing errors and fraud. Pipeline administration, approval of changes, and deployment responsibilities should not reside in the same hands. For example, the engineer writing the pipeline should not also be the sole approver of risky changes. Segregating responsibilities ensures that no single individual can bypass controls unchecked. This mirrors financial systems where different people initiate, approve, and reconcile transactions. Segregation of duties adds both accountability and resilience to DevSecOps pipelines. Golden module catalogs provide pre-vetted templates and modules that teams can use with confidence. These catalogs might include standardized Terraform modules, Kubernetes manifests, or reusable build configurations. Each module is maintained with clear ownership and a defined update cadence, reducing the risk of outdated or insecure templates. For example, a golden database module might enforce encryption, backup policies, and least privilege access by default. By consuming from a curated library, rather than reinventing configurations, teams align with secure baselines while accelerating delivery. Golden modules operationalize best practices at scale. Break glass procedures provide a carefully governed escape hatch for exceptional circumstances. These procedures allow security or operations teams to bypass normal gates temporarily, but only with time limits, explicit approvals, and retrospective review. For instance, during a critical outage, a team might use break glass access to deploy a hotfix outside the standard approval chain. Logs must capture who invoked the bypass, why it was used, and when it expired. Break glass paths preserve agility in emergencies without undermining long-term discipline. They ensure that exceptions remain controlled, not habitual. Rollback automation is another safeguard that reduces the cost of failure. By tying deployment metadata to one-click or scripted reversion processes, organizations can quickly restore prior versions when issues arise. For example, if a new release introduces unexpected regressions, rollback automation allows teams to redeploy the previous build within minutes. This resilience not only limits downtime, but also encourages faster adoption of updates, since teams know they can retreat safely if needed. Rollback is a practical counterpart to release gates, ensuring that forward progress remains reversible. Evidence generation reinforces the governance and compliance dimension of DevSecOps. Pipelines automatically export plans, approvals, scan results, and logs, mapping them to regulatory or internal controls. For instance, a report might show that each deployment was signed, passed security scans, and received 2 independent approvals. Evidence turns ephemeral pipeline runs into auditable records, satisfying auditors and executives alike. By embedding evidence generation directly into automation, organizations ensure that compliance is continuous rather than periodic, reducing the burden of manual reporting. Supply chain security frameworks provide structured maturity models for DevSecOps. One example is the Supply Chain Levels for Software Artifacts, or SLSA, which outlines progressive levels of build integrity and provenance assurance. At lower levels, pipelines ensure basic logging and reproducibility, while higher levels require tamper-resistant builds and detailed provenance. By aligning pipelines with SLSA or similar frameworks, organizations benchmark their practices against industry standards and gain a roadmap for improvement. These frameworks elevate DevSecOps from a collection of tools to a disciplined, strategic program. In multi-tenant organizations, pipeline design must account for isolation. Secrets, caches, and workspaces should be scoped to individual projects or teams, preventing accidental or malicious leakage across boundaries. For example, one project's build cache should not be reused by another with different trust levels. Isolated design ensures that tenants share infrastructure safely, without contaminating each other's pipelines. This design principle mirrors multi-tenant cloud environments, where strict isolation is key to maintaining trust across customers. Cost and performance guardrails ensure that pipelines remain sustainable while still enforcing assurance. Guardrails might cap the number of concurrent jobs, limit the scope of scans, or define artifact retention periods. For example, running deep scans on every minor commit may be excessive, but requiring them at release gates strikes a better balance. These controls optimize resource use without reducing assurance, ensuring that security does not overwhelm budgets or slow delivery unnecessarily. Guardrails align security ambition with operational reality. Continuous improvement loops keep DevSecOps pipelines evolving. Incident findings, audit observations, and lessons from postmortems are converted into new checks, policies, or gates. For example, if a security incident revealed an unvalidated configuration slipping through, a new pipeline stage might be added to block similar issues. Continuous improvement prevents pipelines from becoming static or outdated, ensuring they adapt to new threats and organizational lessons. This feedback loop turns pipelines into living systems that grow stronger over time. Anti-patterns in DevSecOps are often the opposite of its core principles. Using long-lived administrator tokens undermines ephemeral security. Allowing mutable latest tags breaks reproducibility. Deploying manual hotfixes outside the pipeline erodes traceability. These shortcuts may feel expedient, but leave systems vulnerable and ungoverned. Recognizing and eliminating anti-patterns is as important as adopting best practices, since even a few exceptions can undo the discipline of an otherwise strong pipeline. For exam preparation, DevSecOps is best understood as the integration of automated gates, artifact trust, and least privilege principles into CI/CD. Gates enforce quality and security before promotion. Signatures and SBOMs prove artifact authenticity, and scoped credentials protect infrastructure. These elements create pipelines that are not only efficient, but also auditable and resilient. Exam questions may focus on identifying the correct combination of gates, policies, and controls that operationalize security in delivery workflows. Recognizing how these pieces fit together prepares learners for both test scenarios and real-world application. In summary, DevSecOps operationalizes security as code, embedding automated gates, signed artifacts, and scoped access into pipelines. Release gates ensure minimum standards, admission controls prevent insecure deployments, and rollback automation provides resilience. Evidence generation and supply chain frameworks extend these practices into governance, while continuous improvement ensures they remain relevant. By replacing manual oversight with codified, automated policies, DevSecOps enables organizations to deliver software rapidly without sacrificing security or accountability. It is the embodiment of secure delivery at scale. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.